Hi, Pamela.
Hello, how are you today?
I'm good. Jumping in early. I'm moderating tonight, so always checking the technology a little bit early. So you're with Central Illinois, correct?
Yes, I am. I'm the chapter president.
Okay.
So,
Cool. Well, I'm so glad that y'all are joining us tonight. I thought that was really neat that Florence put that out there. So really appreciate it.
yeah, I'm super excited about it. I just was jumping on because sometimes I jump on early as well to make sure there was no issues from our
I do
side.
too. I do too.
Um,
It's
but I'm
been
excited
raining.
about it because I actually am the owner of Smartsheet in my organization.
Okay.
So I was like, oh, well, I'd be interested in hearing what you guys are doing and stuff like that.
Right.
So,
Well, cool. Yeah, I'm excited that Cicero's getting to join us. I had seen him it was a conference in 2020 that was a virtual conference. And I just found him to be really, really engaging and really interesting and just very well versed in the software
mhm.
tool. So I was like, he seems like somebody that I could learn a whole lot from. So it just kind of kept in contact with him. And when we're going to Canvas speakers, a lot of times it's just trying to diversify the topics and figure out what would be good for our member base and project managers and business analysts to learn about. So,
Yeah, for
so
sure.
that was part of the thing. I launched early because it's thundering really loudly over here. So I have a little bit of that nerves, like, please don't let the electricity go out
Oh,
while we're hosting this.
yeah, that would be hard.
Yeah, so I think he's going to be joining us at about 5:20, and we had about 130 people register, which usually what we've been seeing is maybe about 60% of that shows up.
That's
So
awesome. Yeah, how big is your chapter?
we've got about 430 something members.
Wow, you guys have a great turnout for events.
It's been a mix because we've been doing a lot. We get a lot of guests on these as well that aren't members of the chapter, but it's split about half and half with what we see in the registration is half guests, half members. And I know the fact that we haven't been doing a charge has probably increased that some, but also the fact that there's not a charge makes it easy for people to like sign up and then not commit to
Hmm.
it too. So we're kind of rethinking some of those things for 2023. But yeah, I remember talking to Florence. John Signo connected us at the beginning of this year, and I was just telling her, I said, the best luck that we've had has really been through LinkedIn because we're not really doing Facebook, we're not really doing Twitter or Instagram or anything of that nature. I mean, we could, but then it would be small
Hmm.
board monitoring all the social media chapters, which is a lot, so a
It's
lot
a
of times
lot.
we'll ask our members to kind of share our message. And that way it kind of, because if they're sharing on LinkedIn too, because I'll
Hmm.
post it in the chapter, but I'll also post it on personal. And if they reshare it, it kind of expands the brand a lot, but
Hmm.
without needing the maintenance of somebody to be a full-time media coordinator on
Yeah,
top of
it's a lot. I don't know how Florence does it. I know she has a small team now, but there for a while we didn't even have a team doing our marketing and publicity. So it's a
right.
lot, which
Yeah,
is
it is a bit. How big is y'all's chapter's board?
so we have about 600 members and our board has 7 people on it right now, but we have 8 spots total.
Okay, I got you.
And it's our VP of professional development that we're missing right now. So we don't have anyone to do the meetings. So Florence has stepped up and she's been doing those as well, scheduling all of them, getting all of them. And so we're just trying to provide content. So this is exciting.
That's the best way to do it. I mean, because we've gone through those seasons too. I've been on the board, off and on since 2016, and we've seen that too, where a lot of roles, they go vacant, and it takes somebody else kind of stepping up. But to me, one of the most important things is even providing some form of content, whether it's virtual or
Mhm.
whether it's in person, and it's just kind of keeping the communication and the connection up, and a reason for people to keep coming
Oh
back to.
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we've been doing a lot of virtual and we do 2 events a month. And then
Okay.
we're working with Central Indiana and Iowa to do a professional development day. And so just trying to work on those partnerships, right?
Right, right. I think that helps. And we may do that for the PDD. I mean, this year we're actually, it's the Brandon land, since that counts for 5 PDUs, but we've got the 25-year anniversary. So that was another big milestone thing. So I was like, well, maybe it's too much to try and do the in-person, the virtual, and the milestone and the PDD. Maybe we do that in 2023 and just have the virtual Brandon land. And
Yeah, I think 2023 is our 25. I
yeah.
gotta get on finding a keynote speaker and stuff like that for our event.
Well, one thing to keep in mind is that when it's a milestone anniversary, PMI will actually get somebody from PMI National to come out. So that's what we did. So we
I
didn't
need to
have
put in
find-
for that.
There's a speaker request form that you can do, in that year of that anniversary. And yeah, they just, they check it. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't find out it was our 25-year anniversary until I think it was April or March. And I was at a conference, and then it was like, oh, okay, hurry up and plan it.
Yeah, when I was at the February conference is when
You found out.
Oh, I see. Someone's got their Engage background.
It might be me.
It might be.
Hello.
I'm so jealous. My team is begging to go into Engage, and it's just not in the cards this year.
I'm super excited because I love in-person conferences, and it's going to be fun.
That was where I first connected with you in a virtual setting was through Engage. And I remember you just really kind of stood out amongst the speakers, and I was like, okay, he seems really cool and really up to speed on his content. And I just thought it would be something great for this group. So
I'm excited. This will be fun.
Me too. Me too. Hi, Lee. How are you doing tonight?
I'm well, thank you.
Good. So we're the early bird cruise. So we've still got till about 5. We've still got a little bit before Cicero starts speaking. So, one of the things I put out on the communication was just encouraging people to let us know if you do anything with visual dashboards or metrics within your organization. And if so, how do you find that works with your stakeholders?
I think they're great if they work. Sometimes we have the dashboard in place, but we kind of manipulate it a little bit.
That was one thing Cicero and I discussed, even setting up your data correctly on the front end, which is something that I transparently need to learn a little bit better too, because that's, to me, the hard part is figuring out how do I structure this to where it inputs correctly and turns out
and
the way
it's
that I want it to.
meaningful. Yes, because
Right.
sometimes people in different business units get really hung up on how they understand the importance of certain things without really looking at the broader picture of the context or drilling in or even zooming out, because they're hung up that they got the 5 things they wanted to look at potentially. And while it might be accurate, it might not necessarily represent what they're hoping to capture.
Mm-hmm.
Very true.
Or what anybody else cares about.
Well, right. I mean, anything done in a silo,
Mhm.
Well, do we have anybody on the line that's from Louisiana and planning on joining us for our 25-year anniversary in person? I see a couple of people from my Louisiana crew. I'm not going to put the pressure on. I would love to say, Lee, you show up, but I know that's kind of a big ask.
Well, that's a long trip for me.
No.
Are you having chicken for dinner?
I don't know yet, to be honest with you, because the events coordinator is supposed to call me sometime either this week or next week to kind of finalize the menus. So, but most likely, I mean, I know we're getting like 2 hot options, 2 cold options, a carving station, but yeah,
It should be fun.
Check. It should be. It should
Yeah,
be.
I think so.
We've got AJ coming down from PMI. That's going to be the speaker for us.
Oh God, it'll be fun then. If AJ is going to be there, it'll be fun.
Well, good. You're going to be in Las Vegas this year, huh?
Oh yeah.
Okay. And Pamela, I heard you're going too, correct? Awesome.
Yeah,
For Engage, or no, for the PMI event.
Oh,
Yes.
for PMI, yeah.
Yes, I am going to the PMI.
Okay. I feel a little bit better because I just finalized all my travel plans, this weekend and got that done. It was like that was hanging over my head. And I was trying to figure out how early I was going to go there and how to plan and coordinate everything because I was getting there a little bit earlier. So I was relieved to get that done. And now I'm ready. So
I know that's on my list. It's one of those things causing me that pressure. So I need to just sit down, do it so I can relieve that pressure.
Does
The
it make a
biggest part-
difference it's in Las Vegas to you guys?
No, it was just more the travel. Like I overthink the whole travel thing. Like I'm traveling in that Saturday before. So I'm traveling in way early to give myself a chance to explore. But I was like, okay, how do I leave in the middle of the road with enough of a layover in Dallas, but get there early enough to enjoy the day? And then I'm leaving on the 3rd. So in my brain, I was like, okay, it ends at 12. Maybe you can leave at 10 and get a 1 o'clock flight. So I sweat all of that kind of stuff, just looking at it and going, okay, you should get home on Saturday in case what happens in Orlando happens and you're in the airport for 6 hours. I'd rather do that on a Saturday and have Sunday to sleep than try to go back to work after a week of.
Well, I'm going to Brazil in next month. I got 2 7-hour layovers.
Oh, wow.
One
That's a
coming,
lot.
one going, one each way.
Right. Let me see. Oh, okay. And Casey's asking about the 25-year anniversary. So yes, I will put details on that. Let's see. And I'll say it out loud.
I've definitely heard it mentioned over the last few virtual. I'm still just joining on the virtual side of things.
Oh,
but
that's fine. That's fine. We've been for a while.
interested
It
to
was kind of
see.
to save the date, and we finally figured out a date on it. So I'm going to type the next upcoming events. I'm going to say them out loud right quick. But 8/18, we have an in-person in Lafayette at Opportunity Machine. And then 8/25 is in Baton Rouge at Community Coffee. 8/27 is 5-hour Brandon Land. And then 9/15 is 25-year anniversary at Oak Lodge. Okay. And so that's the big thing, like, especially the anniversary, so right now, I mean, that's going to be a 3-hour event. We're going to have a professional photographer there taking different headshots for people to use on their social media as well. It's going to be a buffet style. The first hour and a half is going to be very casual to kind of encourage more networking and where people can actually connect and talk to one another rather than having to sit down, and not get that much of a chance to engage. But we will be having AJ Philippus that's coming in from PMI. We'll also be doing a recognition of the past presidents of the Baton Rouge chapter and honoring them. So it's going to be more of a social venue for that. And we do have all of that on our website right now. It's at PMIBatonRouge.org. Yeah, we've been trying to get a little bit better about getting speakers scheduled out in advance because I know the communications we've been sending y'all is a lot. But I figure, okay, if it's out there on the website, on the calendar, and on the homepage, that makes it easier for people to find things in advance and have a little bit of advance planning on things if they choose to go. Let's see. So we're at about 5:30. So we've got about 10 minutes before Cicero starts. For those of you that are joining us, love to hear from you either in the chat or if you take yourself off of mute about your experience with visual dashboards, if your organization is using them, and if it helps to align your stakeholders. Y'all don't be shy. So, okay, Andrea said she's not using. All right, you're welcome, Nate. How many of you are interested in learning more about visual dashboards? Because it may be a gap that we have as project managers. I'm going to say
I know
no.
that when I was working for Schlumberger, we had done a rollout and we had just embraced basically Office 365, and Power BI was one of the huge selling points that we were delivering to the various team managers, just for that particular capability, that they could take a lot of their data, tabulate it, put it into the BI, and then get these really great dashboards, you know, that basically they could answer questions that they didn't even think that they had, you know,
Right.
and then get workable actions out of that.
I think it helps you to think quicker when you can just see those visualizations rather than having to go through the exercise of constantly interpreting the data. So. Excel construction, okay, yeah.
Hey, Tanya, can you repeat the question on the table?
Yeah, the question was if your organization is currently using any sort of status reporting or visual dashboards, you know, how sophisticated they are, and if it helps to align your stakeholders. I mean, if that's easier to see than the stakeholders interpreting text.
Gotcha. Yes, yes, yes is the answer to whether it's helpful, for
Okay.
sure.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to only chat. That's Tara, right? The leader of the call?
Oh, Tanya?
Tanya, that's the name. I'm sorry. Hey, Tanya, this
That's
is
okay.
Nate.
Hey. Nate.
So, yeah, I just recently joined the chapter finally after getting the PMP pass, 4 or 5 months ago now. But in any case, yeah, we had trouble trying to implement them. We were really trying to combine a whole bunch of business lines and make a very simplified dashboard, which required pulling a lot of information from a lot of different people.
Right.
And anyway, it was a big struggle. But in any case, yes, very interested in somebody who's successfully done it and how they did that.
Agreed. Let's see. We've got about 48. So we still have a little bit of time. So just some brief chapter announcements and acknowledgements. I wanted to say thank you to the Central Illinois chapter, Florence Renee and Pamela Clapp, that are joining us. Florence let me know that she shared this message wider with their PMI chapter as well. So to me, that's always so cool when other PMI chapters can align from different geographic regions and kind of spread the message on things. It helps us all out. Another thing that our chapters are going to be collaborating on, and y'all have seen this on some of the communications, is a 5-hour PDU event called Brandon Land, which is coming up on August 27th. That's something that's going to teach people more about resume tips, how to do your LinkedIn, and also kind of teach you some tips and tricks to navigate the applicant tracking system, because a lot of people, when they're not getting a call back, they may not realize that it might be something as simple as the header that the machine is not reading and it's not getting to human eyes. So again, that's something that we'll collaborate with Central Illinois and the Dallas chapter as well several weekends from now. You know, and I just wanted to let everybody know too, the 25-year anniversary is going to be coming up on September 15th. That's going to be a Thursday night at Oak Lodge in Baton Rouge. It's going to be a nice reception hall, about 3 hours of networking and events. We're going to try to keep the agenda light, so it just really gives us the opportunity to connect. Did want to let y'all know there's an early bird registration initiative out there, because I've got to get the numbers back to the event center. So if y'all get an opportunity to check that out on the website. And then just a few things that I wanted to update on membership. And this has kind of been driven from the past couple of days of just answering questions. The local PMI membership and the annual membership wind up renewing at the same time. You know, we've had some people that maybe they joined PMI National at the beginning of the year, but didn't join the chapter until June. and they're seeing it come up at the same time. So I just wanted to verbally acknowledge that that's a policy that PMI does have, you know, just to spread awareness that those memberships would come up at the same time. So, and looking at my list, and one other reminder, PMI actually did send out a survey. This has been a little bit of a time ago. I actually know it was July 11th. Each of the chapters would have a survey. It would go out only to the members. But for those of you that are so inclined to look back in your email box on July 11th, there is that survey that's due by August 15th. That's the way that our local chapter gets feedback on how we're doing and what areas we could improve upon. So we would really appreciate it if our members would take the time to fill that out and send that back. You know, and as always, even on topics or things that y'all want to see, you know, we've got some openings going into 2023. So any feedback that y'all have on topics or which y'all would prefer, just please feel free to let me know. So. All right, well, with that, I'd like to introduce Cicero and give y'all a little bit of context for this talk. So I met Cicero virtually in 2020 when he was a presenter at the Engage conference for Smartsheet. And I was really impressed with his presentation abilities and the content that he was presenting. And as project managers, I mean, I think it's very important for us to find diverse tools to keep our stakeholders engaged and aligned. So I do know in the communication, I had you as principal technological evangelist, and you've recently had a job promotion, correct?
I did. I now am the manager of all user groups, mobilizers, and evangelists. So it'll be even more fun.
How long ago did that transition take place? Was it about a week or two?
Yeah, I think it's been all of 2 weeks.
Okay. Well, I appreciate, even with that being said, and you haven't taken on a huge job transition, I appreciate you still being available to do this, because I know y'all's other conference is coming up in October, and it's a lot going on. So, but with that, I'd like to go ahead and turn it over to you to get started.
Fantastic. Let me share my screen so we are ready to go. Let's see. Oops, I think I have to share just individual things. Let me make sure. Yeah, well, we'll figure it out. Okay, so you should hopefully see my slide deck. Is that right?
Yes, we can see it.
Awesome. All right, well, let me zip past this stuff and introduce myself again. I'm Cicero. I don't ever use my first name, so pretend you've never ever seen it, even if you do. I have been doing a lot of things for the last 30 years. I started as a science teacher and then moved from there to actually work in Microsoft, and have been in software ever since. So over 25 years now, I've been doing software, and in a variety of different data-based companies, from survey software to analytics to even software that analyzed every single thing that you have on your laptop for legal reasons. And so lots of different things. So I am a serious data nerd. Absolutely love data. And through this session, I'm going to show different things and I'm going to talk about different things, but I really want to make it clear I'm not selling anything. Okay, sure, I'd love it if you bought Smartsheet, because then I'd have a job. But I'm going to talk about Tableau. I'm going to talk about Power BI, Smartsheet. Because the key to this is finding what works for you. And I'll talk about some different reasons you might use the other things and so on, so that you have a better sense of what that means. But some of you are much farther along when it comes to dashboards and all of those types of things and data visualization, and others are just beginning. So hopefully you all walk out with a little bit of something. So I'm going to start with the intro that I just did. Then I'm going to talk about what is a dashboard. That one is morphing as time goes by. And then things to think about when you're designing that, doing that, things that are common mistakes that people make. And then I want to show you some things about a dashboard when we get through with that. And throughout this, again, like Tanya had said, please feel free to ask questions. All right, so what is a dashboard? And this is interesting because the concept of a dashboard has been around for a long time. And the original idea of it is like a car dashboard, okay, with the gauges and so on. That is when people talk about dashboards, what they kind of see. And I put a quote in here from a person named Stephen Few. If you haven't looked, I mean, if you're really into visualization of data, Stephen Few is one of those elite. And when I worked at Tableau, which was my last position, it was common that we actually had to read all of those books on all the different things that go into digital visualization. And so it is a full study if you wanted to go that far. But and I will say that he is very old school, and if he ever heard me say this, he probably hate me, but old fashioned when it comes to the dashboard. He has a very, very, very cut and dried definition of dashboards. And his is a dashboard is a visual display of the most important information needed to achieve one or more objectives. So very, very tight, consolidated and arranged on a single screen. We'll talk about that, so that the information can be monitored at a glance. Okay. That is the definition that you'd find in a dictionary. But when I'm talking to people, there's more than that now. Right? Dashboards can be kind of whatever you want them to be. And like at Smartsheet and Tableau and Power BI, you can do more than just have a bar chart, right? You can have a number of different things. And so the way that I like to have people think about it is a dashboard shows you data, right? And then a portal takes you places, because portals are just as important as dashboards. And it all depends on what you're trying to do. And in many cases now, the dashboard isn't just the dashboard and a portal isn't just a portal. It's a hybrid of these, where you're having charts and numbers and metrics, but you're also giving people either information or giving them ways to get to other things. So it's the combination that now we're seeing. And so we're going to talk about some more specific things when it comes to dashboards, but then also a little more broadly, because I don't hold to the old way, because it's so broad now. It's so much more. And at the end of the day, it's what do you want it to be? So with that said, here's just some examples. And these are more of your traditional type dashboards, where you see all of these. And I literally just went out on the web and just started looking for different pictures. They're everywhere, right? But I've got a couple different areas that I want to show you, that if you want to start getting involved in this, getting ideas, doing things, these are some places to start. So Smartsheet has a website, and the area here on dashboards shows you some different kinds. An executive dashboard, for instance, showing you those high-level roll-up information, right? Project management, right? Where's the status of different things? Maybe what dates are we going to hit? All of those types of things in project management. But if you notice, even in both of these, this isn't true definition of a dashboard, because in the upper right side, we've got places to go, or documents, for instance. That's not your normal definition. And here too, you've got links to go to other places, shortcuts, things like that. So these are taking it to the higher level. Okay. Employee resource. This is very much more of a portal. Okay. Unless you're going to be adding metrics like how many employees do we have now, how many added in the last month, those types of things, then it becomes a hybrid, right? Because it has metrics. The portals are more for things that you want to give people for new hires, for instance, or for access. Right? But can they go together? Absolutely. Sales. The one that I'm going to show, we'll talk about sales. Just give you, because it's a quick, easy idea. But you can see here again the idea of the metrics. But in this case, now showing maps. Maps are a very good thing. And Tableau and Power BI really good at doing that. So another thing that you might have to use. And then like event planning. Again, this one, not your typical dashboard if we defined it the way we looked at it earlier, because you've got information about people, all of that, along with the metrics you want. Okay. And pay close attention to some of this top area. I'm going to talk about that because that to me is one of my pet peeves, and I'll show you. We'll talk about that in mistakes. All right, so we looked at that. Let me now look at Tableau Public. So let's talk about a difference in what these things do. And we've got applications like Smartsheet, which not only stores information, but allows you to do project plans, all of that, as well as create dashboards. Okay, it's kind of a bigger picture.
I do have a question.
Sure, of course.
The hyperlinks that you're clicking, are they supposed to be driving to a different page?
Oops, you know what? I think that's the share issue I had.
Okay.
Let me, thank you for pointing that out.
You're welcome. Actually, Pamela called me too. I was looking at the second one. I was like, wait a minute.
Thank you.
You're
Let's see, I got to see which one I'm on now. Keep reminding me because I have to keep sharing. There we go. So
Okay.
we'll actually go to that back one that we were just at so you could see. That's this sheet. When I was going through that, I was actually testing you to see if you could visualize without anything. But you can see the different types of examples here, the portal that I mentioned, looking at the different data and how it's laid out. We'll talk about laying out data also and how that's important, but also what are you trying to do with that? So then there's also areas like Tableau Public, okay? And Tableau Public is, so I'm sorry, let me back up. I was explaining what Smartsheet did, but Tableau and Power BI, what they do is they connect to data and then let you analyze that data. Okay, that's what they do. They don't modify data. They don't change your data. Your database is your database, wherever that is. Now, it could be a sheet. It could be a true database, a SQL, Oracle, you name it, database. Okay, but what it does is it goes in, looks at all the data in there, and then lets you manipulate it. Okay, and you had been talking before we started about, what are we going to show? How are we going to look at the data? Those are products that let you say what if, right? And really look at that. And I mean, it's addictive, because once you start doing that, you're like, well, what if I compare this to this and do this? And it is a science, okay? And that's why people get hired just to do these. But that's Tableau and Power BI, that's what they do. And then once they do that analyzing, and Smartsheet or Tableau calls those vizzes, okay? You put those together to create a dashboard. Okay, so a combination of those things. And Power BI, the exact same thing. Now with Smartsheet, you could take a viz that Tableau or Power BI makes and then put that onto the dashboard that they make. But Tableau and Power BI much more specific when it comes to what they're doing, but much more powerful in the analytics, okay, because that's what they're made for. Okay. But both Tableau and Power BI have these websites that you could go to look at all different kinds of data visualization. I mean, just crazy amounts of stuff. And they have even software that allows you to make your own with, it's like a trial version kind of step down, but it lets you begin that kind of concept. Because I think Tableau costs around, I don't know, I'm going to guess $2,000 per license. And that's a desktop. That's to do the analyzing. Then you have to think about how am I going to publish it, all of those types of things. Power BI, same kind of concept. And so that, but again, this is how you can be looking around to see this stuff, to get different ideas. Right? And some of these are really good. Some of these are, wow, you use so much stuff. Like an example here of this gel. Anything that you have to sit for 5 or 10 minutes to read is not something you want to have as a dashboard, right? But again, what's it for? And so you can look at those things, but you can see color. We'll talk about all of these different things. All right, so with that said, I want to then go to Power BI, and I'm going to have to probably share again. So let me make sure. And now, kind of keep me honest, it's the Power BI view this time, right? Okay.
Yes.
So again, another example, and I'm trying to give you options because I want you to find out what's going to work best for you. Okay. And here we've got, again, a number of different examples of this. And these are great because you can download these, you can look at them and try to figure out, okay, how did they do that? Because like I said, this is an art. And some of these people are wizards when it comes to this. But, as you learn these products, you will be able to start downloading those and go, I see how they did that. I'm going to do that with my data. Okay. But it takes time. Okay. And so don't get overwhelmed when you see dashboards and things like this, because these people didn't just start. Right. This takes a lot of time. Right. And you practice, and every single dashboard should be iterated. It's never done. And so, everything builds. Everything builds. All right. So let me go back to my deck. Oops, that wasn't the deck I wanted. There we go. And then the last, now you can see my slide deck, right? I hope.
I still see Power BI.
Wow. Okay. I've got to keep sharing different stuff here. This is so exciting. Okay. So now you can see my deck.
Yes.
Okay. Let's go back to it. There we go. So the last one I want to show, again, just another place to learn, but is a place called Perceptual Edge. And if you do a Google search on dashboards, you will find a zillion different things to learn. I'm giving you some of the, specific ones, but there's a lot out there. But Perceptual Edge is actually, and I'm probably going to have to share that. So give me a second. There we go. I'm starting to getting used to this. So Perceptual Edge is the Stephen Few's whole website. And again, Stephen Few is an author who has spent years and years and years and years studying just data visualization. Okay. Now, and so everything you see on his website will be very tight to the definition of what he thinks is data visualization and dashboards. But I use it to get other ideas, okay, to get concepts. And one of the nice things that I see with him is when you go to this page, the examples page, when you click on each one of them, he'll tell you what the good and the bad is based on his opinion. And so that's kind of a neat thing to learn when you're trying to do all of this data stuff, because, you know, there's a lot. And so I like to say, well, what's the best ways to do this? So different places to look. Let me go back to this, and I'm going to share so I get you back again. Oh, there we go. Okay. And so those were examples, places for you to go to look. Okay. And keep in mind, again, the definition that I gave you was a dashboard presents data. A portal takes you places. And every time I think portal, I'm kind of a nerd, so I think of Stargate, right? But that's how I think of that. And again, you can make hybrids of those. That's totally okay. What do you want it to be? So with that, let's talk about the things that you need to be thinking about when you're doing this, okay? And the first one, like I mentioned probably 10 times already, is what do you want it to be? Who's your audience, right? Who is getting this? Because when I was reading through the chat, you know, and I'm sorry, I don't remember the names on it, but one person was saying, yeah, everybody wanted something different and it was all this kind of stuff. That's when it gets crazy, right? And so the easiest way that I found is to try to start narrow and then build from that, right? Find your best, easiest audience and work to them first, right? That's if you're looking to develop a whole process that doesn't exist at all, start small, and then people start talking, and then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Okay. Now, and so audience is important. A couple years ago, I had somebody come to me within a Smartsheet, and they said, "Oh, you know, I've got to make this dashboard for our CFO. What do I do? What do I make?" I'm like, "Well, have you asked her?" And they go, "Well, no." I said, "Well, that's where you start, right? Ask her what she wants to see. What does she need to see right away that helps her make the decisions she needs to make every day?" That's the key. And when I do that, whenever I talk to people about dashboards, and I'm probably going to say this multiple times, is I use the 5-second rule. In 5 seconds, you should look at the dashboard and understand the most important pieces. If you can't, it's not a good dashboard, right? And that's super important. And why? Because the audience, if you've made the dashboard for the audience, they know, right? But if you're making a dashboard for people who don't have any concept, that dashboard's going to be worthless, right? And they're going to have a bad experience. They're going to have to try to figure out what dashboard means, and they lose the power that you're trying to give them, that immediate decision-making power that data visualization gives you, right? That's the difference. So along with audience, again, it is, what is it for? Is it showing me sales numbers? Is it showing me HR information? Is it showing me a specific project or overall portfolio management of projects? What am I seeing? What do I need to see? Right? Now, that doesn't mean those can't talk, and I'll show you that. But you know, you want to make each of those dashboards specific enough so that people can easily figure it out, and they can always go to another one to get more or something else, right? That's the key. And then once you decide on what you want the audience to be and what you want it to be, then you think about, all right, where do I find the data for this? Right? That's huge. And when I'm talking with people for Smartsheet, that's when I'm helping people design. And when you're designing with Smartsheet, you're designing a process. You're not just designing a dashboard. Okay. And so you have to think about, all right, how am I going to collect this data? How am I going to take that data and then get a number that I can display? And those are things you start planning before you start doing this. Don't ever open up Tableau, Power BI, Smartsheet without thinking about that first. That's like jumping in the water and then deciding you're going to learn how to swim. It really is not helpful. Right? And so understanding where the data is, how to get to it, and that, that might mean you're going to have to work with IT or whatever, right? But then also, how current do you want that data? How current do you want the data that you're going to see on those dashboards? Is it real time? Right? Is it daily? Is it just once a week? Right? Because if it's anything, if it's not being updated, you might as well have it on a piece of paper, because you lose the whole power of the dashboard. The dashboard should be active. It should, every time you log in, you should see that data that is as current as the frequency is, because that's when people are making the decisions appropriately. They're not thinking about data that's 5 years old to try to make a decision for today. Even last week may be too late. Right? So data frequency and the data needed, super important. And I'll talk about a little about that too when I show you my example within Smartsheet. Talk about those kind of concepts. And then how will they see it? Is this something that people see on their screen of their laptops, or on their big monitors on their desks, or do they look at it on their phone? Okay, I've made dashboards for all of those different scenarios, because you might have a manager that the first thing they do in the morning is look at their phone, and you want them to have a dashboard that fits on it to give them what they need to know. Right? And I'm speaking, this is an exact reference. I've had people do that. So how are they going to see this? How are they going to look at it? And then also think about who, again, is your audience, and are there special needs? That's huge. And people don't think about that. But color, everybody uses reds and greens in dashboards. Well, guess what? That's not helpful for people that have color blindness, right? And shades and things like that are important. And there are websites out there that you can actually look at your dashboards with to see how different people with different challenges will see them. So it helps you figure that out. Right. And I've done that where I've made one, and then I look at it through one of those and go, oh, yeah, no, not doing that. And I've got to change these colors, or I've got to change these hues to make that accessible to everyone. Okay. So another thing to think about, workflow. Workflow kind of went into the planning that I talked about, but also then is what happens with that data? Okay, what are you going to do when you see it, right? Because you want to be giving them something they can add to their normal process of a day, right? What is their workflow? And it could be, they start every meeting looking at this dashboard. That's what generates the discussions. That's part of the day, right? They didn't have that in their workflow before that. So that's another thing to do. And then one of the big questions is, What kind of chart do I use? I don't even know, right? Everybody thinks of a bar chart, right? Or if you're thinking in the older times, the, gauges, right? Like your dashboard of your car, right? Well, yeah, no, right? Different charts are for different things. And I'm going to give you some high level ideas about that in a second. All right, speaking of that, here are some of the main ones that we have. And a bar chart, okay? Bar charts are great for comparing data across categories, things like, statuses or departments, okay? The bars are very easy for our eyes to see difference. Even if they're close, we can see a difference. I prefer horizontal bar charts than vertical bar charts. Vertical bar charts to me look too square and blocky, where horizontal ones give you a little, it feels better, right? But again, what's best for you, right? Line charts. Line charts are for trends. That's what you want to see. Whether it's a date trend, whether it's a temperature trend, but lines give you that ability to see that. Could you use the bar chart? Sure. But your eye will pick up the trend much quicker with a line. Okay, so that's important. Now, pie charts. Everybody uses pie charts. If you were to read those books I was telling you from Stephen Few, he hates bar charts. Nothing in the world is worse than that. But they're good. Okay, but it's when do you use them? Now, the thing to think about a bar chart, or I'm sorry, a pie chart, is when you look at it, it's very hard for us to see the difference in one size of pie to another unless it's really significant. Okay. And so if you're going to compare a few things, sure, pie works. If you're going to compare a lot of things where those slices get very tiny, that's no good. Okay, it's not going to do any good for you at all. And you go, well, I could do things like this where I could put percentages in. Okay, but again, if there's a few, that makes sense. Visually, it's good. A lot of them, you can't, it's worthless. Don't even try. Okay. So I did not say pie charts or donut charts are bad, but use them when it's appropriate. Right? When you want to see a glaring difference and you've got 3 or 4 things, pies are great. Right? But that's how you think about it. Maps, density maps, heat maps, all of those.
Yes, because we have.
Oops, I don't know who's I'm talking over. Thank you. So maps, density maps, heat charts, those types of things are using colors and location to show things. Okay, it could be in size of bubble, right? You might be doing a license count, and you see, Denver's huge, and Milwaukee, Wisconsin is a tiny little, thing. Those types of maps will show location and will show size comparison as far as volume goes. Scatter plots. Scatter plots are great for showing a lot of data, but what it points out are the outliers. Right? That's where you see what's concentrated and what is in those really wild outliers. That's the kind of cool stuff you can see with a scatter plot. Right? And then a tree map. This is one that I think is kind of cool. It's called a tree map, but it's really a whole bunch of little squares or rectangles. But it shows you in comparison of other data. Okay, so if you're looking at populations across a certain state, but you could do it by city, and you could see it in this way in a tree map. Those are ways to see different comparisons. Okay, so these are things that you could start deciding on. And the easiest ones to begin with are your bar chart, your line charts, your pie charts. Right? Those are the ones that are just quick wins. Right? But I'll talk about some things you don't want to do with those. So I'll show you that. But that's how we've got that. Any questions so far, Tanya, that I can answer well before I go on?
We've only got one observation from Ernest Rufus, and he said he would add dashboard maintenance requirements.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. How do I keep it up? And your best dashboard is one that you set and forget. Okay. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't go back and make sure it's right or make sure it doesn't need changing. But that's the key. If you've got to keep doing so much work to make the dashboard, it's not worth it. Okay. You've like for things like Tableau, Power BI, those can be set to actually look at your data at a certain amount of time. Okay, so that frequency idea. But you shouldn't have to do anything else. Right? There may be the occasional changing of the chart, things like that. But if you have to do a lot of work to keep that dashboard going, that's not a true dashboard. Okay, that's just extra work for you. Right? And so absolutely agree. All right. I mentioned talking about, what do you want to see? How do you want to see it? This is a real tiny example, but this is what I do when I'm meeting with people to help design their dashboards. I say, what do you want to see? Okay, what do you want to look at? And remember the 5-second rule. Okay, now if you notice, this picture doesn't scroll because when you looked at that definition by Stephen Few, it was a screen. Right? Now, does that mean you shouldn't scroll? No. Okay. But scrolling is something that everybody hates. And if you're looking for data and I have to scroll to find it, not going to make me all warm and fuzzy. Right. So I see daily multiple dashboards that I have to scroll through. Okay. Sometimes it makes sense. Sometimes we should have broke it up. Okay? And I'll show you how and talk about that in a little bit. But this helps in a couple different ways. Laying it out like this gives you that visual. Now, most times when I do it, I'm doing it on a whiteboard, okay, to do this. But it also helps you decide, all right, what data do I need? Remember, we talked about that. And then where do I go to get it? Right? And if you're doing it on a dashboard or on a whiteboard, you can be drawing this out and saying, okay, I need this from this sheet or this database or this X, right? I need this from over here. And all of that is super important, okay? Now, one thing, and I'm going to show you this in multiple places, but notice that logo, because everybody has to have their logo on a dashboard. Like, oh my gosh, if you don't, it's not a dashboard. But I have it on the right side, and that's specific. There's a reason, right? And the reason is this, and there are actually studies that have tested this. But when you, even for this, when you looked at your screen and you looked at my picture, your eyes hit the center and then they moved up to the left. Why? Because that's how we read. So if I want things to be seen, where do they go? The upper left quadrant. If your logo's there, that's not giving them anything for the 5-second rule. Right? Logo's nice. Metrics are better. And identify those things that you want them to see right away, and those go to that upper left quadrant, right? Because that's where your eyes are going to go, right? So you start thinking that way when you're designing this, right? And like I said, how do you want it laid out? Try to keep it on the same screen, left-hand quadrant, and 5-second rule. Those are super important concepts. And again, I don't care what you're using. I don't care if it's Tableau, I don't care if it's Power BI, I don't care if it's Smartsheet. That holds for every one of them. Right? Always, always, always. And any other one that I'm not even thinking of. All right. So, and again, I'm going to show you a dashboard in a little bit, but I want to build on those ideas because I'm going to talk to those ideas once we get there. So, common mistakes. You can kind of think about those as we were talking, but one of those is just too much going on, right? If I looked at this dashboard on the left, in 5 seconds, I don't even know what I'm looking at. Right? I just see a zillion numbers, right? That's only good for those specific few people that know what they're looking at on this dashboard. And then they might look specifically at the left quadrant, for instance, to start, right? But you don't want to jam 8 million things on a dashboard just because you can, right? Make it digestible. Okay? That's the key. Start with less, you can always add more. But if you have too much, you will turn them off and they won't look again, right? So that's important. So at the top, there's no context. You can have charts, but a chart has to make sense. And if it doesn't have enough information on the chart to go, oh, this is monthly sales, or oh, this is this, again, you've lost them, right? You've lost them. And so there are times where you need to add information about these things so people can understand them, okay? The other concept that you'll hear when you really delve into data visualization, there we go, is the amount of ink. And this is actually from back in printing, is you wanted to limit the amount of ink. Why? Because it cost a lot of money, right? But same kind of concept for a dashboard. Limit the amount of ink. You don't want extra things that are going to clutter the person's understanding of what it is you're trying to show, right? But if what they look at isn't understandable, you need to add something to help them. That's not wasted ink, that's important ink, right? So that it goes here. Now, the one I have here on the right, that's too much scrolling. Okay, that's a ton of scrolling. Do they want to do that? All right. Maybe for this one it works. Okay, you'll tend to have that more accepted with a portal than you will a dashboard. Okay, people don't mind scrolling to find information. People don't want to scroll to find data. Okay, and so that's where you can kind of think about it. Also in this, you'll see, like for instance, this big area at the top. Is that useful? Right? And I had mentioned my pet peeve is where people put these big title bars up on a dashboard so that half of the screen is nothing but a title, and then I see a couple numbers. Like, well, that just wasted a whole screen. Right? And again, remember, half of that is my left quadrant, which now is gone. So wasted space and scrolling, also the issue. And then I had mentioned too much ink. The bottom one is a perfect example. Right? Don't add color because you can. Add color because it makes a difference. Okay? It either points out something, it shows a comparison or a contrast. Make it valuable. The one thing I see people do all the time is they'll make like a dashboard black background or other color backgrounds. And then you go, okay, you better have some great visualizations that stand out, or you just essentially put them in a dark room. Right? That's not helpful. So really, these are simple. And many of you are just going, yeah, no kidding, I know this. But it is where people make their mistakes, is in these areas. So definitely want to be conscious of those things. Okay. So now I am going to go out of this and I'm going to share my screen again, but I'm going to go into Smartsheet so I can show you a real dashboard and talk about the pieces. And let me do my sharing here. Oops. There we go. Oop. Let me minimize it so I can do that. There we go. Okay. And now you should see Smartsheet, I believe.
Can see it.
Okay, good. Whew. I'm starting to get a hang of this. Let me just expand it. There we go. Okay. So, and I apologize, I don't have Tableau and things right now to be able to give you comparisons and stuff, but we could nerd on that for days. But this is Smartsheet, and Smartsheet, like I said, is much more inclusive. Okay, it allows you to create sheets very similar to Excel, but with other things added. Okay, but all of that goes together to create dashboards. Okay, and some things on this dashboard are good, some things are not good, and so I want to show you that. Okay, notice that the upper left quadrant has specific metrics because, you know, I went to the boss and I said, what is the most important numbers you want? They go, I want these. Okay, boom, I'm putting them there. Okay, that's important. Now, another thing that you should see right now, when you looked at this screen, think about what you did. Your eyes hit, they immediately started pulling to the left, but they got sucked down to the right. Why? Because there's colors, and your eye is really susceptible to colors, right? That's why we have the eyes we do. But the problem is, this is a poor use of color because it's drawing me away from the most important things. And that, again, don't use color just for color. And if you're using it, be aware of what that's going to do. And in this case, like I said, it immediately sucks my eyeballs over to the right. Well, if I wanted that to be the most important thing, I should have moved it up in the left quadrant. Okay, but very important because everything else has a very kind of consistent color pattern. All of a sudden, I've got colors. That's something to think about. Okay, so how are you going to do this? And notice I've used a half donut. Okay, this is good. It's small enough amount that I can see differences and I can add labels to help. Right? If it was a lot more, it wouldn't be any useful. It wouldn't be useful at all. But keep, you know, here's an example. Without this number label, 9 and 11 would be very hard to tell the difference. And if you need to tell the difference, this may not be the type of chart you want to use. Okay? And in this case now, you're seeing I use the horizontal bar charts, like I said, because I just like those better. They feel better. And I've actually added a type of report. So this might be aggregating information from a sheet, from a couple sheets, so that I see those things in a report type form. Okay. Now, so, and then the consistency of color, super important. Okay, because again, it's not distracting. Now, if I look though, I'm going to scroll. Look at that. I had a scroll, and this stuff has no business being on this dashboard. Okay, it's completely different. Okay, but I can put it all on one. Don't. Right? Because this isn't helpful. Okay, is it important stuff? Yes, but is it important enough to be on the same dashboard? No. Okay, that's how you start making that decision. Because again, remember, nobody likes to scroll. I don't, you know, it's just not okay. So how do we get around that? That's when we start thinking about giving them nested dashboards or dashboards that connect. Right? And I simply took, this is not something Smartsheet makes. Smartsheet doesn't make icons. I took our company icons and I use those in a menu bar. And I'll break it down for you in a little bit. I'll show you the behind the scenes too. But this is a menu bar that now I'm going to allow people to navigate the different dashboards. So that here is the important stuff. They need to see that right away, but they also need to go to training. Okay, they can click on that and they're able to go into training. Okay, and this might be now a whole different area. Okay, this is more of a portal set up to look like a dashboard, but it's all part of this experience, and that's okay. But notice that immediately you look to the upper right for the menu bar. Well, I moved it. Don't move it. Always keep those consistent because we're trainable. We learn things by rote. And so you're always going to want to keep those going the same way. So I'll show you, I'll go to a different one, this field ops one. And notice that one is in the same location and it felt comfortable. It was like, oh yeah, okay, I know where I am, right? And what I've done with those different graphics is I've just changed the color so that the green represents where they are, the blue represents where they can go. And as soon as I change it, go to the different dashboard, notice that then changes. So little things. Now, with Tableau and Power BI, you would bring in graphics very similar to what I can do here, but you can lay those out. Never give somebody something that they can click on that they can't get home, right? If you're nesting dashboards, you don't want to have just a link to dashboards and say, okay, well, click here. Because as soon as they do, now they're somewhere else. It's like sending Dorothy away and never giving her red shoes, right? It doesn't help. So that's an important piece. But what I did then, because we know that this stuff is not what we want to have on my main dashboard, we can move that to another dashboard, okay, or to a portal, if you will. And this now has videos that they might need to look at. This has a slide deck. It may even include a form. You need to get feedback. You need to have things. Can you put a form on the dashboard that you're going to have? Okay, that's one thing that Smartsheet allows us to do. But then also notice here that I've got resources, and those are shortcuts. Those give me ability to go to other places that are not connected to these dashboards. Okay? And in those cases, you're not going to have a way home. But people expect that. They go, yeah, if I click on this, I'm going to go somewhere else, and I know I'm not going to come back. Okay? But lay out your things so that people have a flow and a consistent flow. Okay, that's super important. And I'm going to just edit this so you can kind of see. Notice that in Smartsheet, all of the different items within the dashboard are specific things. Those we call widgets. And there are 8 different kinds of widget. Metric widgets, chart widgets, shortcuts, the report that I talked about, web content, maybe another location like a published video. But all of those then go in to build these dashboards. And when you're designing your dashboard, that's what you're thinking about. How do I want all of those things to go together in the best way possible for me to have all the information I need, or my audience to have all the information they need, and keep going. Okay. Now, I want to show you something here. Let me go back. Whoops, I guess I do go here. This is a workspace. This is where my dashboard lives. But the thing that I had to think about was, all right, how am I getting this data? Where's it all coming from? Okay. And for myself, what I like to do, and this is more important with things like Smartsheet than it is with, say, Tableau or Power BI. Power BI and Tableau, you're going to go to databases. Okay, that's how you get this. With Smartsheet, you might be having multiple sheets, for instance. But I like creating metric sheets or roll-up sheets. And what this is doing is it's going out to these different sheets and doing calculations that I want to have happen. And when I do that, these are all automagic, right? In other words, as the data changes on those sheets, those change my metrics, those change my dashboards. Immediate changes to my dashboard. Okay, that's crazy cool. I get the exact information I need to make my decisions. And that's using these metric sheets to aggregate the data the way that I want it to then be displayed on my dashboard. And I like to color code things so that then I know exactly what different groups I'm using for different charts, for different reports, things like that, and make it very easy, right? But the concept of metric sheets or roll-up sheets are part of that designing of your data, understanding where the data lives and how you're going to get it from there to your dashboard, right? And being able to put that together. And you know, I mean, I could nerd out on this forever, but you know, it's what you want to have happen, right? That's really the key. And in all of this, it's about what do you want the audience to perceive? What information are you trying to give them? Start small and keep in mind, you know, I did not give you a million things to think about. You know, color, position, okay? Those are huge. If you just think about those, you're good, you're going great, right? And what do you need? And like I said, there's different reasons I'd use different applications, but whatever you're going to use, one, you want to be comfortable with it, and two, it needs to do what you need it to do, right? And that's how you then start doing this. But we are all visual creatures. And because of that, any kind of way you visualize data will make it pop and will make it important. Okay? And I'll finish with a story. So when I worked at Tableau, you know, we're always talking about charts and all this kind of stuff. And I was at a customer conference and a woman came up to me. She goes, "Oh, I got to show you my dashboard. I'm so proud of it." And I said, "Oh, I can't wait. I want to see it." And it was like looking at a ginormous spreadsheet. That's it. It was just like she took Excel and stuck it on the dashboard. And I stopped and I'm like, okay, how do I say this nicely? And she goes, "I know it's not what you would normally do, but this is what my boss wanted." And I said, "Then that is the best dashboard I have ever seen." And that's, the audience wanted it. So that's there. And then what I did is I talked to her about how could we change that manager's perception slowly. And then, so I talked to her about actually adding color to the cells to stick out and things like that, that would start training him to become modern and go, yeah, look, a chart, it's an amazing thing. But, you know, how do you do that step by step? That's super important. So with that said, I will stop sharing. And I'm 3 minutes over. I apologize. Darn it. But
We're still good. We still got plenty of time for questions.
Awesome.
If people.
So ask away. Hopefully this helps somewhat. You get something. Don't let the neon scare you. Ask away. Thank you, Nate.
I'm going to jump in and I'm going to ask. There's some data that I've been trying to kind of figure out how to lay out. This isn't so much for a professional project as it is a personal project. So for instance, if you're tracking fitness data across days or across months, it's almost like I had too many columns and I was trying to figure out how to best represent that. So with something like that, would you do more months rather than days? Like if you're doing days, is that too much of a collection of data on a spread, on a dashboard?
You know, it would depend on how you want to show it. what I would actually do is because, and I'm going to speak to, well, you could do it in any of those applications, but what I would do first is I could break it down by month, right? And so whatever you're going to use, whether you're using Smartsheet and you aggregate it with formulas, or Tableau, which will aggregate by months, you can then squish all that to say, okay, this is each month, right? But if I wanted to see like trends, then I would actually go, week to week or month or day to day, depending, because you get some awesome trend lines with something like that.
Right.
And I'll give you an example of that. There was in Seattle, there's this bike trail, this super long bike trail, and you can download data about people, how many bikes go by. They have like a machine that keeps track. And when you looked at that data by like year, it just looked continuous. But if you went day by day and you did it, all of a sudden you noticed there was this gap in the data, and like a complete gap, no data. And why? Because they were doing construction, and it didn't show when I gave it the, the macro look. I went down closer and then it just glaringly stood out. And so, it depends on what you're trying to see. I love trends. I think that just looks
That
great.
makes sense. That's what I was trying to do, because I had moved cities 3 years ago. So I have like 3 years of data with fitness where it was like real high and then it was real low. And sometimes situationally with months and what's going on, sometimes I try to see those trends to get myself back on track, because that's something that's important for me to track and kind of self-realize and get myself back. But it was just figuring out how to represent it, because I had a lot of different categories going on, and I tried it in Smartsheets and it just didn't, it was the way that I set up my data. It didn't feed over cleanly.
So I'll give you another goofy example. When I was coaching, so I used to coach for years, and when I had coached boys and coached girls, and when they would be in the weight room, we'd collect weights. Now, back then, I didn't have all the cool stuff I do now, but what I did is I took that information and I compared it to a thing. And for the boys, I used an elephant. So as I aggregated the amount of weight they lifted each day, I had to calculate how many elephants they lifted. And then for the ladies, because they preferred a different animal, they go, yeah, we don't want elephants. I said, how about a koala? They go, oh yeah, koala works. So then it's how many koalas did they lift? So theirs were always a bigger number. So that actually worked really well. But that, and could you do that? Absolutely. Right. It's just a different way to represent things. And nowadays with Tableau or Smartsheet, I'd actually use icons and things and make it look really fun. And, you could have some good times with it.
I like that. We see, I think there may be some questions coming through in the chat.
Yes. So I saw the one about Agile. I think, Ernest, it would really depend on what you're trying to show. It may be that it's not a chart, it's a specific metric, right? It kind of depends. A lot of it is I'm always going to give you it depends. But, if you're looking at something that's progressed across the sprint, then you would maybe have a trend line, or if it's comparison of numbers, like how many bugs got fixed or something like that, you might use a bar chart, because that makes those things stand out. It really would depend on the data that you're trying to show.
It looks like Ashaki had a question where she said, this right under Ernest, our PMO currently uses a very manual process to update our program dashboard in Google Sheets. We update it weekly for senior leaders. Any thoughts on suggesting migrating to a less manual system?
Well, yeah, with Google Sheets, that's the problem. It would be, my suggestion is find something that connects together, right? Whatever it is, you have the ability to have it look at your data automatically rather than you doing it. And like I showed you with Smartsheet, right? It would do those calculations so that your dashboard is always updated. Things like Tableau or Power BI do the same kind of concept where you want to set up, it's a process rather than, you're setting up different buckets of work to do. So it would depend on, go there. I'm obviously going to say Smartsheet is the easiest next step from Google. But don't, like I said, don't take my word for it. If you want to look at it, go ahead. But do something that works like that is what I would suggest.
Cicero, the next question is in regards to providing us with some links that we could sign up for training on dashboards using Smartsheets. Does the Smartsheet website have, free training on that?
There is training. So if you go to the Learning Center, there's a lot of stuff on dashboards and things like that. They do have an LMS, a learning management system that I think is by purchase through the university. But there's a ton. If you Google Smartsheet and whatever, you're going to get a lot of stuff.
I've seen some, like even we were getting some whenever I worked for a certain organization that used the product. But I had also found some on udemy.com, and there's still a lot that I've got to learn and train myself on, but it was like some of those resources kind of helped. And like you said, even just Googling sometimes specifically can help out a lot.
Hussam had said, figure charts should be self-explanatory. And I agree with that. Again, that's that whole 5-second rule, right? Is if you can see it, you can understand it.
Right.
But that's a whole nother thing is, are you showing the right thing? That's something that, just because you can create a chart, is it really showing you what you should be seeing? And so especially things like Power BI and Tableau, you need to make sure of that because they could be comparing things in different ways that are actually showing you a chart that doesn't work. That isn't the way you want it. So, but the whole idea of what you see is what you should understand right away. Absolutely.
Right. And I think even Mary's question a little bit above Hussam's, it's just what is a good way to get end users engaged and giving ideas for what would help them on the dashboard. I mean, I think those two ideas kind of marry them together, and even whether you're in person with your team or whether you're virtual and just even organizing a space just specifically for brainstorming, because different users are going to have different preferences on what they look at, because a lot of organizations still very unfortunately work in a very siloed system. It's just the reality that we live in. So almost asking different stakeholder groups and then maybe rolling it up to the leadership and vetting some of those ideas.
And the thing is, again, start small. So you might ask them, what is the most important 3 things that we have to see every day to understand what we're doing? And that's the first dashboard. And then, you make it and you show it to them, go, here, what do you think? And then you say, well, wait, I'm going to change this number and let's see if it changes on the screen, right? And then if it does, people just go, oh, it's magic. And now you've sold them, right? But the way to win somebody over is to help them either stand out or change their life for the better, right? Those are the 2 ways that you're going to win people over. And are you giving them information faster so that they look better to the boss? You'll win them. Are you giving them data that makes them have to work less? You've won them. Right? Those are the things that I always try to do.
It looks like we've got a question from Pamela, and I had noticed this lately too, that she's seeing more and more conversations with PMI and Smartsheet. Has Smartsheet given any thoughts on working with PMI to create a stronger project management toolkit? I had noticed that in what's called their speakers hub, which is something that the chapter leaders see, where PMI national has recently gone and sort of endorsed certain, lower cost speakers for the chapter and things of that nature, but they were using Smartsheet. So that was kind of cool for me to see, because I was like, oh, okay,
But it's always one of those like, oh, cool.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I don't work in that area to be able to facilitate those kind of things. I do know that for the last, say, 4 years, we are working with them to get PDUs for different events. So the trainings that the university side of Smartsheet does, you can get PDUs for. And now for our Engage conference, I'm in charge of, well, and I'll tell you, I'm in charge of all the sessions. And I have to submit shortly the information to get all of those for PDUs. So there is a lot of that that's going on. I don't know more so, and usually it's a lot of political stuff that I try to stay away from. It usually just doesn't work well for me.
And I'm just typing a message because what you even just said just kind of naturally transitions over. So PDUs. So this session is worth 1.5 PDUs. And just for everybody on the call, the PDUs will be submitted on behalf of those of you that are members of the local Baton Rouge chapter, because it's 2 unique identifier codes. Those will be submitted within 3 to 5 business days. For those of you that are guests, and I know Florence and Pamela invited several people from Central Illinois, and for those of you that are also guests, the claim code is C106EFY528. And then I'm going to put that in the chat too. Almost said the chapter. It's things that I have like this whole laundry list as I go through it. I'm like, okay, remember to do this, remember to do that, or else you will get emails afterwards going, what is that claim code? So let's see.
Oh, and Pamela, I'm glad you said that about the learning track. That was good.
It's also important to remember, like even the PDUs and the diversity, because a lot of people, local chapters providing the content and providing PDUs is one value service, but most of the members wind up having to self-report at some point because in a 3-year cycle, it's 60 PDUs. So even with 2 meetings per month, it's still a tough target. So knowing different things like that watching educational videos, watching those tracks, being able to self-report, reading thought leadership books, volunteering in your community, and even taking on mentorship or giving a presentation. All of those are ways that people who've got that certification that need to upkeep those credentials can self-report and get the PDUs. And another thing too, there's a lot of people that have other designations outside of project management that go off of the CEUs. You can kind of cross-collaborate those. Like, so we've got some accountants, and some chief financial officers that have to get CEUs. They kind of professional development can, like I said, count both ways. So.
Cool.
But
Any
this
other
has been great.
questions I can help with?
Let's see.
Cool.
I would love to hear how your transition with your new team is going.
So I've worked with all of them prior. For all of these things, I still do my evangelist role where I do things like this or do things with user groups. So that team actually was really excited for me to become their manager because I essentially was doing everything the same.
Right.
But I lucked out. I have a great group of people. And for me, it just is a better way to get Smartsheet evangelized to everybody. And
Right.
realistically, at the end of the day, all I want to do is help people change their lives. And that's the super important part.
I love that. That's a great mission to have, and just even spreading the education helps out a lot. I found something in a lot of the speakers that we've had, and even your background with being an educator. Sometimes I find that people that have done that and been teachers in their past sometimes make such good presenters on these things. So I want to thank you for your time that you spent. And I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight too. You know, and I also wanted, for those of you on the phone that, you know, are local, it looks like there would be one more question in there.
Oh, yeah. Can I answer that quick?
Yes,
Tanya?
absolutely.
So best practice for including instructions or tool tips. So it depends on the product. I know, and I don't specifically know this with Power BI, but I know with Tableau, you can actually add things like tooltips that when you mouse over something, it'll tell you. So that's a really handy way to have. With Smartsheet, I would use more of the concept of rich text. So small rich text blocks by those things, or just titles or headers of your charts can be enough information to people so people understand, and then they go, oh, okay. Like you might say, you know, miles versus this or something, or you know, project dates, and people immediately then know what that is. So I kind of think tooltips in certain things, if we can embed them, like in Tableau, you can. In things like Smartsheet, I would use a rich text box. Remember, not too much, because they short, sweet, that's all they need. And then, or the headers of the charts themselves. Awesome.
All right. And I just, again, I wanted to thank everybody who took their time tonight for joining us, you know, and our special guests. So we appreciate it. And if y'all have any questions, you know, you can reach out to us, the chapter. My email is president@PMIBatonRouge.org. And like I said, any suggestions that y'all may have on topics and things of that nature that y'all want to see in 2023 too. So.
And I absolutely appreciate talking to all of you, and thanks for all the great questions.
All right. Thank y'all so much. Y'all have a great night.
Thank you.